Okay, perfect. Yes, it's official. We're live now.
Nice. Nice.
Oh my goodness, awesome. But it's so weird because a while back I was thinking, first of all, I was thinking about you and I was thinking, where is that now? After all the work that we've done. And I thought it would be pretty cool to do, yeah, just a follow up, see where you've been, based on the work we've done and really just flow, see where it leads us and yeah, just do a bit of catch up. So I don't even know if I'm going to be doing another one of these, but I thought, hey, why not? Let's just have some fun with this. So as we get going, for the people that will be watching this in a bit, I'm just going to give them a quick intro, and then you can let them know a little bit about you, what you do, what you are into these days, and we can take it from there. But otherwise, yeah, my name is Mick, and decided to have this idea to just follow up with you, Idris, one of my clients, and yeah, just see how the work that we ended up doing 7 years ago, because remember 2017, 2018, right? And then from there see the impact that it may have had or not have, because again there are no right or wrong answers. I just want to just hear the follow-up. So yeah, that's what we're doing. So Idris, the floor is yours. Tell people a little
Yeah.
stuff and we'll get into it.
Yeah. Well, my name's Idris, and I'm a director at an agency doing digital marketing. I have worked in a lot of different sort of capacities, creative and strategic capacities over my career. Just had a birthday yesterday, so feeling pretty righteous.
Awesome.
Uh, Not old, although I
I wasn't about to go there.
yeah. It's I mean, I've celebrated many thousands of moons, but
Yeah.
that's kind of where it
Man
starts and
of
stops.
mystery.
But it's been a great ride.
Yes.
I've been blessed with a family that is full of love
Mhm.
and not always supplied with a lot of bounty, but always had richness of heart and care and spirit.
Oh,
So
that's great.
that's been sort of, brought a lot of my own sort of personal principles into the mix and into my work. I'm a heavy volunteer and community builder.
Yeah.
So I work in a lot of different sort of political places. It's really weird. I used to be a conservative and a liberal and a progressive, so I'm sort of agnostic on the party game,
Mhm.
but always been really driven to the arts and community development and youth.
Mhm.
So I'm, former president of a Rotary Club. Um, I'm a president of a dance company right now.
Awesome.
I work with the Elk Island National Park as a friend of Elk Island board member. So, community matters, whether it's a cultural community or a, natural, conservation.
Yeah.
And you and I connected many years ago, like probably 8 years ago or so.
Yes,
And it was
exactly.
through a personal
Or the,
friend.
at,
Yeah.
I'm thinking, was it the Mosaic Center?
Yes.
Yeah,
And we it was funny because we had met through a mutual friend,
that's right.
and then we bumped into each other
Hmm.
as volunteers for another mutual friend.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it was just one of those things where, like that the moments of community and cultivation, where it's like things
Yeah.
begin to seed and begin to sort of sprout.
Yeah. And
um
you kind of wonder, hey, you know what? I've seen that person a few times, and let me ask about that person, like what they're about, because sometimes you feel that pull, I guess, towards someone in particular when they're in the room, and something is, I don't know. I remember my curiosity was peaked. So now we naturally got into that conversation about purpose, because I think you had asked me about it, right? And at the time I was saying, well, I have people figure out their purpose and align their lives. So now, do you remember what was it about it that kind of intrigued you? I know it's been a minute, but do you kind of remember?
uh yeah, I do, because I've never really looked at my life in any kind of purposefulness.
Hmm.
I've never used that metric or that indicator as a purpose. I've lived in like 10 cities. I've lived in a backpack for a couple of years,
Uh-huh.
just traveling and doing stuff. and purpose was never something that really was part of my calculus. So that intrigued me a lot, because I was like, well, I mean, I don't know what I'm going to do with this, but maybe it'd be good for me to kind of just try and define a bit of an understanding of what that might be.
Yeah.
And be able to kind of look inward a little bit and learn from myself. I'm really good at taking in from the environment. I mean, I work in marketing, so that's
Yeah, right.
that's what we do. We try to take away a lot of assumptions and let information be our guide. So that process for me was, you know, even in the introduction, that when we were first started talking, and it was like, I don't really know what that means.
Yes, right, because I can see why, because we live in, I mean, naturally, we are the kind of people who like things to be very practical. So I know for a lot of people, this idea of purpose can feel so intangible, right? And to kind of know where that fits in.
Yeah, well, and also just sometimes the way it's presented, it's presented like it's like a brick, like a unit.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily presented as a mode or a filter or a lens by which you like can begin to look at things. And that was one of the things that you talked about that really caught my eye. I was like, wait a second, maybe I have the notion of what purpose means a little bit. Like, you know, I studied science, and purpose was always like mission critical, singular.
Yes, like very business, right?
Yeah, and like arithmetic as opposed to calculus. Like it's like it can be on a curve. You can have progression, regression. You can have, you know, not to talk too sciencey or get all marketing data-y, but you know, like you can have different sort of plot points, and you can have outliers, and that can still be part of purpose.
True.
There's no damage. You know, it's you can just reversion parts of your life, and that allows you the flexibility, and purpose just gives you a way to analyze it. I think that's so fascinating. Because like 7 years ago, I didn't know how to really look at where I was. I was looking at my sort of career trajectory, and I was like, okay, well, it's cool. I'm moving from job to job and doing these things, and there's all this stuff happening, and it's like, that's great. But like, is it in alignment? And if it's not, what might you think about, you know, and what might you build to make it align or to change up completely?
Exactly. And so around that time, we know with your career, as you mentioned it, how did you feel, I guess, that things were kind of off? Because you had, a great position from what I remember, working with a great company. So still, despite all of that, what is it that made you feel like, okay, something is off, and I have to kind of find ways to kind of look at what this is really about?
Well, because it was all surface layer. So there was no depth. It was like, okay, great job. Cool. I'm gonna get to do cool work. Awesome. And and I didn't have an answer when we started working together, when we started talking about that. And I didn't have an answer for that reason. It's like, okay, well, yeah, that's a good question. Like, why is this job good?
Yeah.
Why does this job matter?
Yeah.
Is it a paycheck? Like, is it the quality of work? Is it like you could get that anywhere? Like, what is it about this? And so it's like, okay, now I have to start looking inward to get answers.
Yeah.
And it's something that, in a very distracted way, I've been able to kind of, I won't say hide from it, but I haven't really had to address it. I haven't had things fall apart where I've had to lay like, okay, I need to retool.
Yeah.
And I've had that happen in the past. But this process made it so that I could see what those tools really are and begin, sort of, enveloping some of those kind of layers, some of those inner layers that, and not doing it in a mental analytical way, doing it with applied practice, with praxis, with meditation, with, techniques that you were shared with me that were like, okay, and then being able to sort of patch on additional goals that to me were goals, but were really just part of process.
Yes, exactly. And so, I mean, despite that, I was kind of wondering, not a lot of people would have been willing to take that leap, because in some way, to be able to look into things like that and making some bold decisions that may have to follow can be very disruptive in someone's life, right? Because, well, they've put all this time and investment into what has led them to where they want to be. So for yourself, what made you want to kind of take that leap, despite the fact that maybe, and I don't know, maybe you didn't feel that way, it could have been very disruptive to, well, everything that was going on in your life.
Well, and it was to some degree. There were parts of it that were quite uncomfortable, and so I had to kind of wrestle with. I mean, one part of it was my desire to please and to come forward with. This wasn't necessarily stuff that we unpacked directly, but it was something that had come up like in my meditation. It was like, okay, there are points where I'm going to disappoint people and I need to disappoint people, and that's okay. And having footing in understanding that trajectories sometimes are in great alignment and other times they're not. And that when you're dealing with two separate bodies, two separate souls and movement,
Yeah.
it can get kind of ugly. But it doesn't mean that you have to, that things fall apart. It just means that things misalign, and that can be brief or it can be extended. And sometimes you can control that. I've learned to communicate that, and that process is so cool because we go through a lot of negotiation in life where things don't align, and we have to be absolutely sure-footed for that to work, and speak with whole sincerity. And in doing that in business, that goes a long way. Having tough conversations with clients, breakup calls that like end strong is something that has become a real superpower of mine. And I've grown to use those tools in a really sincere way. I love that process now, which I never thought would be something that anyone who's worked in sales would ever really we don't get training on that, how to break up well, we don't.
Tell me more about that then, because I mean, even as, yes, we're working on some of your, let's call them practical goals, we were introducing the idea of, okay, time for yourself, the meditation piece, that practical, I guess, I refer to it now as functional meditation, very practical. But at the time, that wasn't really the term I even used. But how was that introduction in, I guess, sharing with you a different path to consider that would integrate that medium? How was it for you?
Well, it for one thing, it taught me to work in stillness, and to not think my way through things, allow myself to feel my way through things.
Oh, okay.
That was really profound for someone who spends so much time thinking. And being allowed to be in concert with my emotions, something that, and I know you and I have talked about this a lot, men are not taught that language as children. It's characteristically not a North American paradigm. And so, reaching middle age and then starting to actually learn to work in concert with my emotions was a difficult process. And meditation gave me footing. Meditation was a less rigid way for me to habitually sit and connect, and to do so on a level that is of my definition. That was the other thing. It was intimacy with myself.
Yes.
So it's at a pace that works. I can have a long sesh or a short sesh, and there's no judgment. It's like, okay, yeah, sure. I've got a busy day. I've got 7 meetings. Oh my God. And okay, it's going to be 10 minutes. And like, that's cool. You took the time. Great. And I still take the time. Like, that is just, it's so meaningful to be able to sit quietly and just hear and feel the trillion cells around your body that are fighting every day to keep you going.
That's right.
Like then, and like to wake your day up and be like, I'm just gonna think about my boys and just like we're just doing our thing, and like,
That's
yeah,
right.
we're gonna mess up, and like, okay, and my guts are feeling terrible, okay, like whatever. That's life.
Exactly.
And
It's a great way to help you just go through life while having a better experience of it.
and
That's how I like to describe it.
and even when it's bad, it's still good. Like that's the part you lose the duality. And that's the part of it that I like. It's like, yeah, you know what? My guts feel terrible. That's because I ate cheese last night. And you know what? It's the gamble you play. And like, it's the gamble. And so I'm like, okay, I'm just going to have to go out and put a poker face on and be good.
That's
and
right.
do what I need to do. And be able to find the comedy in that, to be able to like, not just feel like, oh, I just feel sick. And like, okay. Or be able to and not in a self-deprecating way, but in an empowering way, to be able to look at whatever my state is and look at it with acceptance.
Yeah,
right?
yes.
And just that bit of like comedic curiosity and acceptance, like that. Just, I don't know, man.
It's interesting how you mentioned that, because really what you're talking about is how those different elements are all blending in together, right? In a very symbiotic way, where we're so accustomed to, even our culture, to compartmentalize everything, right? And this process, even by the way you're describing, find a way to kind of maybe not necessarily remove, even the way that I live now, I feel like my boundaries and all the structure where the lines could have been in terms of compartmentalizing aren't there anymore. I still work on making sure that they're not there. But the way that you're describing is that for you, some of these lines were blurred, right? So it allowed you to just manage them and go through them in a way that was much more efficient.
It's surprisingly efficient, because we had worked together for a number of years, and
a year and a half, I believe.
Yeah, and I had felt like for me it felt like the work was just beginning, and I wasn't really seeing what real change was happening. Because we were kind of in situ, and the parts of it that really carried forward were like the daily practices, the things that I found so much value in, and they were so applied and simple, and and also just being okay with what I understood my nature to be. And that was another sort of piece to it, where I was also in a lot of judgment that I didn't really unpack, because when you have a service mind, you often sort of fall into the trap of thinking you're always pleasing people. And sometimes you are, and you got to kind of cut that off. You got to learn to self-monitor. But also there are times where you're not, but you're in judgment that you are. And so you have these weird lenses of yourself that, like, it took a long time, another year or so, to really kind of unpack those and be able to see my own sort of inner judgments and be able to kind of step back away from those, and the clarity that provides you when you're able to do that over time.
So you're referring to like blind spots.
We had talked about blind spots, but I was putting up lots of walls.
You're like a football player, an American football player, just give me the stiff arm.
Yeah. And I was cute about it. So you knew not to push, and that's fine, But we had bigger things to work on, and the bigger thing for me at the time was that I was having a lot of body issues, body dysmorphia issues, and concerns about my appearance and my weight, because I was quite overweight at that time. And my health had begun to kind of slip as well. You know, and it wasn't long after you had relocated that I had I went in for a physical, and my doctor came back and said, like, you know, my doctor's Ugandan. He was like, we're going to have this talk because, you know, there's a line that I'm kind of crossing here, but I'm going to ask you a couple questions. And he asked questions about my family background and, you know, incidences of diabetes and those questions. And they were valid questions. And when I shared, you know, some of my family history, he was like, okay, you're topping out at 267. You need to start making some decisions, or decisions are being made. And it's going to be your body making those decisions. And I don't think they're going to be good for you.
So to clarify, so because by the time that you and I were done, remember we even shot that, you know, that testimonial. I believe at that time you had lost like 70 pounds.
That's right. That's right. So we were on that trajectory of the weight loss, right? So okay, yeah, maybe I'm misreading the time because you know I'm back 2 hours. So just okay, because
for the people that don't know, like I'm in Ontario, Idris is in Alberta right now. So just so you know, go ahead.
I'm gonna ride that joke the whole time. So I'm just gonna ride it. But okay, so I was on that trajectory when we started working together, and you had said, that's right, you had said something that I thought was so good, because I was so broken up about having to lose all of the weight. I was so like, oh, this is like a massive thing. And I just felt my whole self-image starting to fall apart, because it was made really clear that, you know, I was an unhealthy man. And it was a scary place. But you had talked about how to break it down. You talked about like, what are the things that you can do in a day by day or hour by hour way that are just bite-sized things, bite-sized decisions. And what are the things that you can do to manage so it's not 40 pounds in X amount of weeks or months, it's 5 pounds or 1 pound. So what does it take to get there? Okay, well, and then we were talking about different modalities to apply. That's
really cool. Yeah,
that's really cool.
I love the fact that you were. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that was your work, right? Like, I'm attributing my own glory here, and I'm like, wait a second, no, Nick was there, buddy.
Yeah, well, hey, you know, the philosophy for me has always been to keep things very simple, right? And we live in a very interesting culture where it's about how can we achieve results so quickly, right? Everything has to be done fast and all of that, where it's this weird conditioning that's there where, yes, I understand it's about performance in the way we want to get to where we want to be quicker. But really, if we break things down, it's about keeping things simple and focusing on progress, right? The small progress, as you were saying, okay, how can we lose 1 pound? If we manage to do that, it doesn't seem so daunting, so overwhelming. And then when we see that first result, eventually we keep on adding those, and we look back and we go, oh, here's the progress. And by that time, some of those habits have been cemented where we don't even have to think about it anymore. So that's why those step-by-steps I feel are so important, that, you know, we don't get distracted by all of those things that tell us we need to do things to achieve results quickly, right? Because it doesn't serve us at the end of the day.
That's right. And furthermore, the practice and application of, you know, what you deem to be functional meditation is a principle that I've also begun to apply to other parts of movement. So for me, it's like, I don't want to sculpt my body. I want functional movement, functional mobility. I want to be able to lift, you know, a child, hold a child up, be able to swing around a minimum of 10 times without getting super dizzy.
You know? I'd be like, okay, it's good. I did my part. Okay, see you later.
Like, yeah, I want to be able to be a good uncle. Like
Right.
that's important.
Mhm.
You got to be the good uncle at the barbecue. You can't be the one holding the bet. Oh,
I know. You're gonna
you
tell
know,
your relatives, okay, with kids, I give you 10 minutes.
right? And the other thing too, it's like you don't want to be the guy that's like when they're like at the cookout, you're like, oh no, oh no,
That's
I don't
right.
want to do that one, going down hard. No, but no, seriously, the that was something that kind of like came up in my development, in my practice as well. Was like, okay, what does fitness mean? Like how does fitness apply to my purpose? It applies to in a service quotient, in a from a service filter, service oriented filter.
Yeah.
It's not that I want to make myself look better. It's that I want to be able to serve people. I want to be able to, if I'm outdoors and going with, friends, I want to be able to portage a canoe, and not feel like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to lift this thing.
Hmm.
Um, a good sized canoe might be 70, 80 pounds. Like I want to be able to swing that,
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I need to learn how to swing that. Okay. Well, there's this thing called kettlebells and they swing.
Yeah.
Cool.
There you
I mean,
go.
let me get into that. So I
That's
got into it. It's been 3 years and now I know my way around a kettlebell. Like I know what I'm doing. And like,
fantastic.
it's,
Just the way you thought about it. I mean, that's key. I mean, and it's huge because you tied, well, this activity to something much bigger, right? And so imagine if you didn't have that, the higher, we'll call it purpose there. Well, now you have that connection, right? So not only do you have that motivation to do what you need to do to be able to achieve that, but you have from the other side of the equation, you have that thing that is putting context into why you're doing things currently. Yeah. Yeah, I love the fact that you thought about it that way.
well, again, it's because the idea of purpose as a filter, the idea of purpose as a means with which to analyze your surroundings.
Mm.
It's like, okay, how does this apply to what I seek to do and
Mm.
what I seek to help other people do? Because it's a service oriented kind of philosophy.
Yeah.
So it's just like, it just makes things so much easier,
Oh, I love it. Yeah. And
you
so
know?
talking about transition, because I mean, from that time, you've switched career as well, or maybe you had a few moves. It's been a while since we've caught up on that. So tell me more about how you were able to make those transitions using some of the principles that, you and I had gone through and explored.
Yeah, well, the transition from that job that I'd gone into got pretty rough, and it was a publicly traded company that had basically made a number of very large management decisions that essentially ended the careers of at least there of about 100 people, and they were all across the country in different markets. And so the company was right-siding itself, and in doing so, had basically laid off my entire department, with the exception of about 3 or 4 people.
Okay.
So in that process, and this is also very interesting because in that process, I sat with the directors and regional directors and the big heads, and we were all sort of talking in this office at a location together, and then kind of going through what the motions were going to be over the course of the next 6 weeks. And I just kind of looked around when all of this announcement was happening, and I was just like, okay, cool, this is great, but like, okay, what happens now? What happens with our people?
Mm-hmm.
What's the plan?
Yeah.
And we're like, plan? Plan? It's layoffs. Like, plan? What are you talking about? Like everyone looked like I had lobsters crawling out of my ears,
Yeah.
right? Just like, who is this guy? Like,
Uh-huh.
what do we? Like, why we hire you? We're out. We're done.
End of the chapter. Like,
Go home.
buddy.
So that's when I talked to the other directors in the province here, and I just said, we got to do something else. Like, we're not doing that. because that's not enough. So we were like, okay, let's get photos, let's get LinkedIn profiles done. Let's, start reaching out to our own networks. Let's try to build a bit of a support network to kind of think about how we might be able to help these folks, because there was a lot of them.
Yeah.
So, at least starting that conversation for those who were of the managers and directors that were willing to put a little extra in, because, as directors and managers, you get padded a little better on a severance, right? So it's kind of like, well, all the people that support me don't get what I get. So, unless they've been there for, decades, in which case, love your life. But so that took a little bit of thinking too. And that goes back to my filter, right? Because it was like, I was right there ready to go. Like, I was like, no, I got some ideas.
And that what you're referring to is really the decision-making like framework that, we kind of went through and we worked through. So yeah, I mean, again, just take us through that process, because ideally it was about, what I'm getting from you is making the kind of decision that you would feel good about despite everything that's happening.
Making the kind of decision that I can feel good about, but also remembering what the reason I am here for, which is I'm here in the service of others, in that they will do their best work with me.
Okay.
And I can help realize greatness that way. It's not, it's a team effort. It's always a team effort. And so the thinking is, if we're going to go through a chosen projected tough period, then let's do it in a way that's, in concert.
Yeah. And aligns values.
Yeah. Well, and let's do it in a way that everyone has, an opportunity to kind of say what they need, so we get through it. And that transition happens in a way that's, as just as possible.
Yeah.
That was really important to figure out. And that would not have happened without daily practice.
Oh,
because I was the only one in the room. Like, there's a reason those people aren't doing your work.
Yeah. And so what I'm hearing is that in order to come up with the right decisions, you took that thinking process back to the practice that we had, having time with yourself, for yourself, going through that process in that place of stillness that you were talking about.
Yeah, well, I was already doing it, so I didn't have to go back. Like, that's the thing. Like,
so it was integrated by that time.
That's right, and habitual. So it's like, I don't have to reach anywhere.
Yeah.
Right. The reaching was the ideation. That's easy for me. Like, I got one of these suckers just full of ideas every damn day. That's awesome. I go through, I got 100 ideas that aren't worth a hill of beans because I don't do anything with them. But that's cool, because ideas come easy.
Nice.
It's application for purpose, right?
Yes.
And that's the part of this that I love. It's like, I can wield purpose as a tool. I can wield it in any kind of way. I can use it as a lens. I can use it as a brick. I can weaponize it if I need to get me to get off my butt.
Yes.
Really, because that happens too sometimes. You get those moments too where you're like, I doesn't want to do nothing, and you got to be like, okay, why? Why do you want to do nothing? Is it because you're resting and you need some recovery? Because if that's the case, then you better take it. But if not, why?
I love this. Wow. And that's something I didn't even expect. The fact that,
I'm telling you, man, I still use your stuff. I still use your stuff. It's so ridiculous. Like,
that is so unbelievable, because it's almost like water, right? And the different forms you can take. That's pretty much what you're talking about here, how you're using this in different ways, and it serves you in different circumstances for different goals and outcomes. That's
and also, like, even being like, I had to make a tough decision with my current presidency at my arts organization, because I was otherwise going to continue into another year in a presidency that I know I'm not needed. And I had to be the one to say, no, I'm going to relinquish my presidency at the end of this term. And that was really hard because I am so used to working until either it breaks apart or everyone else is just like, okay, we're done.
Yeah.
Get out. No, or whatever. So when we had accomplished so many things through my 2 years so far, and we got a new venue, we've got absolutely right-sided with staffing, we've got a great board that's very motivated. We've our funding circumstances have turned around. Like, we are doing some great work, ratifying our bylaws that haven't been touched since 2006.
Wow.
We are on the move. And at the end of this, it was like I could easily have another year of just celebration and coast. That's not what I really ultimately want for this organization. And so I needed to wrestle with that with myself and be like, I'm not in absolute service of this after this period. Yeah. I would be better off making moves, making room, finding a good successor, looking for them now. That would have been like March. Looking for them now and having those conversations. And that took a lot. That took a lot to get to.
Yeah, no, I can see that. And by the way, I really appreciate you being so open about this. And the one thing I'm kind of wondering is, like, for you, like, what does it mean to be able to navigate those tough decisions the way that you're able to now, just like you did with that, and be equipped to be able to make those tough decisions and those bold decisions, really?
Yeah, well, it doesn't get easier. That's the one thing. I've had meditation teachers in the past, and they've always been like, yeah, people like to think enlightenment's like really cool and like this like awesome like bright light thing, and it's like, it's not.
Yeah.
It sucks just as much as anything else. Like, you still feel exactly the same pain, but you just don't have the duality about it, but whatever. So you're just like, okay, whatever. And in this, it's like, I feel that sense of responsibility. I feel that sense of loss, and I wrestle with my own self-identity around the decision. I just have a way of self-communicating that gets me to an answer that I think I can stand by, as opposed to waiting for a decision, which doesn't make it any easier and ultimately lengthens the process, and puts other people possibly in places they don't want to be, right? That you're not in control of. Not to say that control is an objective, but just being able to move through the decision.
Yes.
And yeah, it hurts. There's heartbreak in this, like we some of our board members did a lot of heavy lifting to make things happen here. Me being one of them. And so it feels like it's like those breakup conversations, having great breakup conversations.
I love it easy, right? Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
totally. Oh, actually, you know what? Don't mean to mess up the flow. I need to plug the charger here for the laptop.
Don't want to lose you.
Exactly. There you go. See the benefits of being live. You're getting all the details.
Yeah.
Perfect. We good. Yeah, no, I hear you, man. It's not easy, to have these conversations that need to be had, but I think it makes it easier when we better know how to navigate them. So that's huge. And so, you had all of these things that were in your life, right? And we, again, going back to the type of culture that we live in, it's about, okay, how can we do more and more, right? So for you, like, how are you navigating these concepts? This concept of having more on your plate, or going lean, or simplifying things? Like, where are you at when it comes to that at this point?
I'm relatively comfortable with myself on my trajectory. I'm pretty excited. I've begun some light coursework to just kind of keep me sharp.
Hmm.
And I have taken up a number of additional kind of hobbies that I don't often have a lot of time to make,
Okay.
for them, but I've grown to really enjoy them. So one is really like occupying a lot of my mind right now because it's springtime, and that's mountain biking,
Yeah.
which is an activity that just puts me in nature at a very low velocity that is highly technical. So it's kind of like all of the mix of things that I find fun. It's kind of like puzzles, but it's in motion, but it's not too fast.
Okay.
Because you can't go too fast when you're going single track on a mountain bike. You're
That's
not
it.
going 40 kilometers an hour. Like you're just not.
Yeah.
You're going like 15.
Yeah, and you better, because I've had some friends who've done that and some of the accidents that they've got into. So to your point, absolutely, you want to be careful.
Yeah, and I am quite careful. I'm one of those like knee pads, elbow pads guys.
There you go.
So because like I do fall a lot. I've learned to tumble, which is kind of nice. I'm not great at it, but I've learned to tumble a little better. I think the kettlebells, honestly,
Yes.
because that hip mobility, falling down and being a log, you snap.
Yes.
So you've got to kind of be able to have a little bit of
Mobility, as you say, flexibility.
yeah, the torsion in their mid back. You got to be able to kind of have some flex. So you can't just be someone who lives a sedentary life and then be able to go on trail and hope that if you have a hard hit, that your back's not going to get tweaked doing it. So I've had a few big falls, but I haven't had any real injuries, which is bruises, lots of bruises, cuts and bruises, but like nothing real. So that's kind of nice. Yeah.
So the thing that came up for me as you were talking about, the hobbies, the kind of person you have to be for that, it made me think of, this idea of identity, right? And so how do you find, even the work that we did together helped you with, because if I remember at the beginning, yeah, you had some challenges around your own identity, right? So we kind of needed to work on that. And then, yeah, take me through that process and how it has evolved into the way you see yourself.
Yeah, that was a tough one, and that I was wrestling with that through our entire period working together, and I hadn't actually landed anywhere that I felt particularly good about my work until well after, because I had a lot of self-judgment.
Okay.
And the self-judgment clouded my view. And so for me to really unpack what I deemed to be my self-identity, because I thought I knew what my identity was, which was my work. And that is but one dimension of who I am. And I always kind of thought, well, my work would speak for itself. And so in order for me to like really let that kind of, I couldn't push it away. I had to give myself permission. And it took so much. I don't want to say it's work. It's almost the opposite, but it's just as hard. It's like you do less. You have to do less. You have to do less thinking, less judging, and look further inward, and do less thinking, less judging, and look further inward. And then kind of getting to the point where it was just like, does it really matter? Like, does it really even matter?
Yeah.
I have such great relationships with people that are out there that I connect with on a regular basis. I have organizations that I work with that are just doing amazing stuff, and I'm helping them every day. And I have a job that is very fulfilling, and then I get to talk to clients and help them through stuff. And sometimes things get sticky and sometimes they don't. And it's like, that's part of the beauty.
Yes.
So why am I here? I had to get to that point, right? I had to get to that existential, like, why am I doing this to myself? And it's like, oh, it's me. This is all me. This is all just my own architecture. And that took a lot of like just taking those. It's like a toothpick house, but it's big. And it was just like, I was just kind of picking at the little ones, and I didn't get to the bottom. I didn't get to the bottom layer to bring it down until I started asking those questions. But in order to get me there, I had to have so much space. I had to leave myself so much space to do that. And like, you can't just say, oh, I'm going to forgive myself and then walk on, right? Like you can't. Like you've got trauma, you've got whatever you might have in your sandwich of experiences, in, you know, what people might class as karma, you know, whatever that is, whatever package you came in with, and whatever package you're rolling through with, you may not have it that easy that you can just be like, just gonna not judge, you know, because it ain't gonna work. You know, you gotta look in the mirror and it's gonna all come back, right?
Yes, that's right.
So you gotta make a lot of space. You gotta make a lot of space.
Oh, absolutely. And it's interesting because, well, hindsight is always 20/20, right? I mean, we're a couple of years down the road. So, you know, as whether it's before we got with the work that we did or, you know, earlier on, what I was wondering is, if you remember, what is it that you thought it would be, and what is it that you didn't expect, and what it ended up being for you to go through that experience that we went through together?
You know, do you remember? I don't know if you remember this, but I kind of razzed you at the beginning of working through the plan. We went through the plan.
Yeah. And
I hated it. Do you remember how hard I pushed back on it? I was like, oh, I didn't do that part. Oh, I didn't do that part. I would do the dailies. I'd do the daily stuff all the time. No problem. I was like, oh, I'll do the fun things and the things that I like to do. But then when it came to actually writing out that plan, I was just like such a stick. I was like, oh, just things just gonna like, what is the point of this? And that's the thing I go back to. That's the thing that's hilarious. Like I use that thing, I kid you not, for a good year following, you know, because it was just a succinct way for me to understand where I was at that point. Because at first I thought, okay, this is my blueprint forward. And then it was like, no, it's not. It is not a blueprint forward. It is a piece that is a snapshot of a moment in time on a trajectory that I'm on. Be cool with it. Look back at it, use it as a reference point. And then ask yourself, okay, is this where you are? And that's what I did. I go back to it and I'd be like, okay, I'm going to do my daily. I'm going to do my thing. I wasn't getting up at 5 a.m. I was like, oh no, not happening. We're out.
Yeah.
I tried it. I was like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. And then I did it and I was like, yeah, there's some benefits. And then I was like, I was like, no, I'm good. 6 a.m. is plenty
I tried
early.
it. I'm good.
I don't need 7 o'clock on the weekends. Thank you. You know, like that's early enough. Thank you. I'm good. But actually doing the roadmap, actually building out the roadmap and being able to say, okay, who do you see yourself as? Who do you see the benefit of you being your beingness, you know, and what does that look like? Yes. And being able to look at that and be able to say to myself, you know, a couple of months later, like, okay, that's a really cool reflection. And this is the lens by which I want to kind of look forward, or be able to say, you know, a year later, like, okay, that was a cool reflection. That was a great snapshot in time. Yeah. But I've come a little bit further now. I kind of get my inner conversation. I don't actually need this the same way. Awesome. I can be in conversation with myself. I can hear the Idris that when I say I might not actually be saying I about, you know, that's the real quiet one that's in here, you know? And I like, that's the part of the daily practice that like people don't get, is like, when you get quiet and time falls away, like if you could start getting quiet for long enough that like 10 minutes goes by, 20 minutes goes by, 40 minutes goes by, and you still feel fresh after, you're like, this was sweet. Dude, you just come out, you know? And not like all like happy positive. I mean, like you come out, like you're just like, you know,
and different. so much out of it, and especially once you become good at it in such a short period of time, right? You're able to just go in, have everything recharged, reset, and boom, you're good to go again. That's the
Mhm.
beauty about it. Yes, I
Mhm.
totally get it. Totally get it.
And like there are mornings where I'll go sit in my spot, or I have a spot outside, because I like to kind of try to bring in an ecological practice to it to some degree too. I've been reading a lot about indigenous ways of thinking and being, and it's been really affecting me, in terms of thinking about how other systems operate and communicate.
Yeah.
Even things that we don't necessarily. Now this is going to get metaphysical, because I'm just here
Oh,
for it.
good. We're free flowing.
But like one of the things that Chief Whitehead is one of the books I have. He talks about cultures of people who have built an experience and a practice around hearing things that have time scales that are much larger than ours.
Mm.
So trees and mountains have very large time scales. So their communication is in broad timing. And so it takes a lot of generational knowledge and practice to build an understanding of those timescales and of the messages that are being brought about in those systems.
Yeah.
And so the idea of like a marketer, the curious, always want to kind of think around and look around and read things, being able to begin that process of what does that feel like? What does connecting with soil and learning to listen feel like? What does the taking my daily practice of inner connection and communication, and being able to just extend it slightly, extend the body, maybe not the trillion cells here,
Yeah.
maybe there's another 500 billion out there on the ends of my fingers. Is there a way to hear them? Is there a way to build a little bit of, I would never pretend to develop, any kind of indigenous understanding, but just to get a little bit of that moment, and to just be able to embody some of that in myself.
Yeah.
On occasion, I take that outside. I take my little home thing that I do at home,
Yeah.
that goes outside. That goes in. It's like, may not happen, may not happen, and that's okay. I'm not going to judge it. I'm just going to sit and I'm going to listen, and then see if something comes. And if it does, great. I'll have a blast. And if it doesn't, great.
Exactly.
I'm gonna just try it.
Mm. So I have a few questions around that then, because you bring up some interesting things. So, sometimes people will say, well, I need to get into the meditative state with, nature or whatever else. So you've had a chance to experience kind of both. So what would you say to you are the benefit of learning how to be in that place of stillness just on your own, let's say whether it's your room or whatever else, where it's just you inside, compared to, and of course it has its benefits, do
Yeah.
it outside, where there's nature, maybe water, anything else. Can you speak to that a bit?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that I was lucky to do was to leave the notion of it being a state out of the equation, and just allow the practice to take flight.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I struggled with it the most was when I tried to package it.
Okay. Interesting.
So if I was like, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to get it so I can get in flow, or I'm going to do this so I can get into a meditative state, that didn't work for me. It was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to put brackets around this. I'm not going to define it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to do the practice and see what comes. Just do the practice and see what comes. And if something good comes from it, great. If something doesn't, great. No judgment. Just going to roll with it, and as an experiment. And it didn't take long before the benefits started coming out. And it was just like, I can just be in touch. It was just nice to be able to be in touch, to be in touch with how I felt, to be able to self-monitor better.
Okay.
That's one of the things that I could not really, it's so different. It's so different. Like I see myself not as me looking at me. I'm just like, it's just a part of the flow. It's just like, I look back in situ, in conversation, I see it and it's okay. And it's like, there are points where, and it's funny because my wife's called me on this because she's just like, sometimes there are points where your empathy just goes like through the roof. And you're just like, what? She's just like, you asked if I'm okay on this thing. And I didn't even tell you something wasn't okay, but you asked if I was okay.
Because you felt it.
And I'm just like, what are you talking about? And because it was just it was flow.
Yeah, you developed a superpower.
And I knew she wasn't right. I knew it. It was just like, things aren't right. Hey, what's up? Or, and that happens with board members too, where, I sideline the conversation and be like, I saw a look on something we were talking about. I'm here to help, to talk to you. I'm here to just be an ear,
You know what you're talking about here? You talk about it in terms of flow. That's presence. That's presence. You find a way to just be present that allows you to notice those things, right? So, and you kind of beat me to it because that's the question I was thinking about, for people out there who are thinking, okay, well, what are some of the practical, I guess, implementation about this very, intangible thing, like everything that we've talked about, right? The meditation, the functional meditation, the stillness, all of that. What do you think is the practical application outside of that in real life? We'll call it that, in whatever areas you're thinking about.
Where I see it works the best for me is in conversation.
Okay.
Where I see it helps me understand dynamics better. So I like that I don't feel the discomfort in moments of quiet. So there isn't an impulse to fill. And that allows you the room to read. And that's the part of conversations that we miss. Wow. We miss this so much. And developing that skill to me was like, this is amazing. I did a facilitation a couple of months ago, and it was a pretty large group. And I took 30 seconds off the hop. They did me the introduction, got a little clap, whatever. Oh, I'm kind of freezing here a little bit. Am I good?
You're still good on my end.
Okay. And I got a little clap and whatever. And then I just paused. And I just did that. And I looked around and everyone had a little bit of anxiety. I'm like, y'all look like you got a bit of anxiety here. How y'all doing? Y'all okay? And then people were like, yeah. And I'm like, I don't believe you. We're going to do a little bit of breathing. I was like, I don't believe y'all. We're going to do a little bit of breathing. And it was so funny because there was like riotous laughter. Like the people were uncomfortable being called out. And I'm like, I'm here for a minute. I can see this. I see this shit. Y'all look rough.
And you're the wrong person to be, kind of lied to. You will point things out.
It was such a funny moment. And it was like, but it was also a sparkle of sincerity that like cracked the room. Like everyone was on a level now. Yes. Like it broke it out. Mm-hmm. No longer was it just like presenter, audience, blah, blah, blah. Like I broke that right out. And then I was like, okay, cool. I don't need the microphone. I don't need the stage. Let's get close. Like y'all come down. Let's get close. Let's do this right. And they trusted me. And it was like, I trust you. You trust me. We're going to have some fun here. That's so nice. And I know that that's not something I could have or do, and it's everyone gets butterflies. It's just like we were talking about earlier. Everyone goes through hard decisions and those decisions are painful. They don't change. That doesn't change. Your heart doesn't get harder because you meditate. Or because you do a particular type of functional, practice. Mm-hmm. What happens is you feel it better, but you also have these other things that allow you just a little bit of quiet stillness and read time. And it's just so good. It's so good to have those tools because they're not supreme. They are little things. And
Yeah.
it's the little things that stack up, you know? It's kind of like your coaching work. It's little things that stack up. That's the way to play it.
Exactly.
And so I can have, you know, pretty good content. I can have a good measure of activity and engagement in a workshop. That's fine. It's when you're able to truly connect with people, when you're able to just like pull it back. What's happening? How are
Yes.
y'all doing? Oh,
Yeah.
wait, no, you ain't.
Yeah, no, you know what you're talking about just gives me think of the idea that it's this way of being, I find really allows to get to the truth much faster. Because exactly your example was perfect. I mean, you noticed what was happening, and also because of the type of person that you are, you decide to follow through and ask the truthful question, right? And address it head on. And I find that even myself in conversations is the same thing. Because of this way of being, it allows me to notice things and allows me to have truthful conversations. And then the thing that's very interesting is that you also get to see how people react to that, because not everyone either can face the truth, is willing to face the truth, wants to face the truth, right? So I think at that point it helps make things around us very, very clear, and also allow us to know how to operate in a way that, you know, I guess it comes full circle, also allows us to operate in a way that's truthful to ourselves and maintain that alignment as well. What are
Mhm.
your thoughts around that?
Mhm. And well, and in particular, sometimes I get myself into a little bit of trouble with with this. Um, but I've also developed some communication around how to sincerely and gently, without judgment, allow room for those who aren't ready.
Mm,
And being the empathy factor gets amplified with this practice too.
mm, mm.
So that helps, because the same way that you might think that you can hear other people's anxieties in a room full of strangers, you also have off ramps for those who aren't ready. And you can also key in on individual people who you know are the shy ones in the room that would love the interaction, that would love a moment.
Exactly.
Um, that's also really beautiful, because you can be an agent of empowerment for people who may not have tools themselves to do that. And that's just like that to me is that's the purpose lens. That's like boom. That's where
Yeah,
it all
yes.
comes together, you
Oh,
know, because it's just you elevate someone else's experience,
mhm.
and that moment may give them more to for their step, may further their step.
Oh, that's wonderful. And you know, I mean, even the way that you're talking about here, I mean, that's as we also coming, you know, to the end of our hour, because you know we had talked about earlier that we wanted to make this an hour, right? And that's a beautiful way to just, you know, end this conversation on this note as well. But you know, if we are to just end this, I guess, what is something that you feel you can share with people in terms of, well, it's been 7 years now, right? And obviously, you know, we started working, you know, back then, and
Mm-hmm.
really, what is it that you feel you want to pass on to people based on your experience, and what is it that you feel?
One of the things that I think I've learned through this process, and through, you know, trying to take things on my own,
Yeah.
through, you know, various self-help trajectories,
Hmm.
I found that in a lot of cases absorbing information isn't enough.
Mm.
And we have so much information at our disposal
Hmm.
that we often mistake volume for opportunity. The opportunity doesn't lie in analysis. The opportunity doesn't lie in commitments. The opportunity lies in practice.
Mm.
It is easier to take one step once per day than it is to take 1,000 steps 1,000 days later.
Oh wow, yeah.
And that's what this is about. That for me was what this was about. This was giving me the permission and the tools to do big work in very small increments over a long period of time. And I'm middle-aged. My mortal coil is, it's on the move. I'm good with it though. Like, that's the thing. I'm good with it. I'm good with it taking a long time. I may have only half life left, but I'm good because like I can accomplish a whole hell of a lot doing that in this practice this way. So keep that in mind before you go out and you grab another book.
Wow. Oh, I really appreciate that coming from you. And thanks so much for being, well, for one, wanting to have this conversation, being so open, vulnerable, right? I know some of these topics were not easy. And, you speaking about middle age, it's interesting because I was thinking of just naming this video the second chapter, right? It's also something I'm going through. And I don't know, maybe it's going to be a different name for it. But I thought, the second chapter, that there's so much to impact, when you think of the second chapter and everything that leads you there, and maybe everything that is going to be after that. So, I'm really glad that you and I had that conversation, and really, you're an unbelievable human being, man. So I'm glad that you and I had crossed path, right, and stayed in touch. And for the ones who are looking to get on the same trajectory, feel intrigued by this, you can simply start, in a way that I package everything, through makerecommends.com. So www.makerecommends.com, and that's where the journey starts. And so Idris, thanks again, man. It's been a pleasure. I know we'll talk again soon offline, but thanks so much for that.
Absolutely. Take care, friend.
Later.